Have you been feeling a little bit uninspired about playing all of those incredible records that you've spent all that good money on? We've all been there, where you're just not feeling overly motivated about listening to vinyl, and it's just so much easier to just break out the iPhone and stream some music. Don't lie to me. I know you've been there. All right, maybe you haven't. I've been there. I have definitely been there. In fact, I was definitely there a couple of months ago, and I decided to take inventory and see if I could make some changes to get my mojo back. In this video, I'm gonna tell you exactly what I did to attempt to restore my motivation for listening to vinyl. I think this is gonna be a fun one, so let's jump right in. So if I'm being 100% honest with you, a couple of months ago, I was really beginning to lose some steam. I feel like I was just kind of going through the motions. I wasn't really enjoying vinyl in the same way that I once had. And if you've ever felt that way, it might have been for a number of reasons. Maybe you were burned out or fatigued by music in general and just needed to take a little break. Maybe the ritual of listening to vinyl was just too time consuming and it just got easier to pull out the cell phone and stream some music. So I really took a deep dive in trying to understand what was going on with me. As a matter of fact, I feel like I was really trying to fix the problem by buying more records. I'd buy a record and it wouldn't be that exciting, and so then I'd buy more records and they wouldn't be that exciting. I just wasn't getting the same enjoyment out of them as I once had. I discovered that I was chasing that feeling that I used to get while listening to vinyl by just trying to buy more records, thinking I would eventually come out the other end and all would be right with the world again. And then I had a little epiphany. What if the records weren't the problem? All right, so committed to this new revelation, whether it was true or not, I still wasn't sure, but I was on a quest now, a quest to find my dream system within my budget, of course. My plan was to sell off my entire current system and use the funds to purchase an entirely new system. So I was off and running at that point. I spent the better part of 2 weeks doing my homework. When it came to preamps and amplifiers, I brushed up on receivers, integrateds, separates. I studied turntables from all eras and price points, from entry-level turntables to flagships. I studied speakers. Should I buy another set of bookshelf speakers? 2-way, 3-way, 8 ohms, 4 ohms. And I mean, I already knew some of this stuff, but it had been a while, and so it was a great time for a refresher, and it was a ton of work. I went back and forth many times, but armed with all the information fresh in my mind, I made my decision. This is the new system. I'm going to show you all the gear I got, why I made the decisions I did, and ultimately, and most importantly, whether it's actually improved my enjoyment of listening to vinyl. So I feel like there's two really dramatic improvements in this system over my last system. And the first one is the speakers. These are Magnepan MG1s. The MG1 is one of the earliest, if not the earliest, loudspeaker produced by Magnepan. They were in production between about 1972 and 1999. These work off of a panel system as opposed to a traditional cone system. They basically work by using very thin magnetic strips and aluminum wires glued to a sheet of mylar. Each panel has a 2-way system, with the lows and mids taking up about 2/3 of the panel, I guess, and the tweeter taking up the remainder of the panel. They have some very interesting characteristics, as well as some pros and cons. The first thing is just the level of detail that these speakers provide. It is astounding. I'm hearing things that I've never heard before, and it's more than just the frequency response. There's something about the large surface area that feels like you're being hit with a wall of sound. And when I say hit, I don't mean like it's a violent thing. It's more like a thin sheet of water. Think of it as a sonic waterfall that sort of embraces your ear. Okay, that's woo-woo, but these speakers are kind of woo-woo in a very, very good way. I'm using them in sort of a poor man's crossover system with a subwoofer handling all the frequencies below 80 hertz and leaving the rest for the Magnepan. The sound is less muddy, there's just more separation in the frequencies, and everything just ends up sounding more clear. These are 4 ohm speakers, so you need an amp that can handle 4 ohms. So that was a consideration when I bought the amplifier that I have, is that it needed to handle 8 ohm and 4 ohm loads. There is so much more to get into with these speakers. If you're interested in learning more and getting caught up in all of the disputes and all of the information out there about Magnepans, there is no shortage of information on the internet. All right, so let's check out the amp. This is the Marantz 2230 receiver with the black faceplate. So I was considering everything before settling on this piece. And first, I was actually dead set on getting separates. I was gonna have a preamp, controller, and then I was gonna have a power amp. And I don't know, if there's one thing I've kind of kicked myself about a little bit was not making that choice, but when I saw this beauty, I just had to pull the trigger. This one's been refurbished, and I know people have their opinions on that, but a prerequisite for me was I don't want to risk something going wrong and having to be without a component for an extended amount of time. I just wanted to reduce the potential of it being in and out of the shop. Also, a big deal for me was that if I bought a receiver, it had to have a pre-out so that I could easily add components to the chain like an EQ or add a power amp sometime in the future. And because I had decided on the Magnepans, it had to be capable of driving 4 ohm speakers. And it had to be beautiful. Now, I know a lot of people are set on silver, but I just love the look of this receiver with the blue light, the black faceplate, and silver switches and knobs. Just a no-brainer for me. I had to have this thing. Okay, we're gonna get into the turntable soon enough, but I wanna show you a couple of other things first. Let's start with this power filter or line conditioner surge protector. This is one of the little things that can make a big difference. And I really recommend one of these for anyone serious about their system. If you have a buzz, even just a slight buzz in your system, or you just don't feel like the sound is as clear as it could be, this might be a good thing for you to try. First, it ensures that all of your components are plugged into the same outlet, which helps to avoid any ground loop issues, but it also has a filter in it that helps to just clean up the electricity being supplied to your components. And before you say this is all snake oil or something like that, I will say that I have noticed a dramatic difference while upgrading this. And I ask you to remember that your whole system is operated by electrical current, and the quality of that current does matter. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, next up are these acoustic wall panels. So these are very economical ones, but again, I stretched my budget on my components, and I just wanted to start by diffusing some of the front wall reflections that can be caused from speakers, particularly Magnepans, because a lot of sound is emitted from the back of the panel, and it can cause out of phase issues with sound bouncing all over the hard surfaces in your listening space. Now, I have a long way to go in order to treat the entire room, but this has made most of the worst reflections manageable. And the truth is, I want to go with something a little more cosmetically appealing, and acoustic treatments can get really expensive. We'll see what the future holds, but these panels actually work just fine for dampening some of the more prominent reflections. All right, so as I mentioned, I do have a subwoofer. This, in fact, is the one piece of gear that I kept from my original system. And no doubt you're going, what the hell? Why is it right behind the speaker? And the truth is, this is where it sounds best in this room. I am really pressed for space in here, and I don't really think it sounds great on the floor, even on a short stand. I think it sounds much better at ear level, and this is the only place it works for me right now. Believe me, it sounds great. And when I say great, it's not like this is a high-end or even a middle-end speaker. It's definitely an economical speaker. But for now, it is what it is. I think this is the best placement for this subwoofer. at least to my ears. And also keep in mind, I'm not looking for deep, window-shattering bass. I'm just looking to offload the low frequencies from the magnepans. Most of what I listen to is jazz, and not to say I never listen to bassy music, I just don't need a massive thumping bass. I just want something to carry the low frequencies in a respectable way. Okay, that brings us to the centerpiece of this system, at least in my opinion. This is the JVC Victor QL-Y7, and this is my favorite component in the setup. Regardless of whatever other upgrades I make to the system, this is sort of my dream turntable. The QL-Y7 was in production during the early 1980s, and it took the technology of the time and really perfected it in every way. It has quartz lock, which, as you may already know, locks the RPMs in to help mitigate wow and flutter, which can be really annoying for obvious reasons. You want your record spinning consistently, not sounding like a dirty cassette tape deck. The big innovation in this turntable, and they weren't the first to do this by any means, but I believe this model really perfects it, is its electrodynamic tone arm. And that's just a fancy way of saying there are two motors in the tone arm, one to balance the arm in the horizontal plane and another to balance the arm in the vertical plane. It helps to dampen resonance and can even improve the sound of severely warped records. Fortunately, I don't have any severely warped records. But the cool thing is, once you get your stylus set up appropriately, all you need to do is set these dials to the tracking force recommended for the stylus, and the tone arm takes care of the rest. It's a really efficient system in my opinion, even for being early 80s technology. The QL-Y7 is a semi-automatic turntable which is controlled by these buttons, which are outside of the dust cover, which I really like. I say semi-automatic because starting the turntable is a manual process, but the tone arm does return at the end of the record, and there are adjustments for everything here. You can really fine-tune it to get the best out of your turntable and the sound of your records. And best of all, this turntable is complemented with the second of the two things that have really made a dramatic difference in improving the quality of my records. The first was the speakers, and now we're talking about the cartridge and stylus. This is the Audio-Technica VM750SH dual moving magnet Shibata stylus. That's a mouthful. And this is a 5-star moving magnet stylus in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others. It has absolutely transformed how my records sound. What is a Shibata stylus? Well, I'll tell you. The Japanese designed Shibata stylus was originally designed for records with 4-channel sound. Their design greatly reduces vinyl wear and tear compared to other styli, and they produce a very well-balanced sound. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am a stylus expert, but the shape of a Shibata stylus allows for more contact with the record groove wall, allowing it to access more of the sound buried within your records. All right, so am I enthusiastic about playing my records again? Have I rekindled my joy for spinning my favorite tunes? Am I pleased with replacing my entire turntable stereo system? 100% yes. This is truly the best my vinyl has ever sounded. I'm going back and listening to records that I haven't listened to in many, many years. When I first started playing records on this new system, I was digging out any, quote, reference quality records I have in my collection, which I don't have a ton of audiophile pressings, but I have some amazing sounding records, and this system just makes them sing. Playing a record like Now He Sings, Now He Sobs by Chick Corea, or Frank Zappa in New York, or a really great Led Zeppelin pressing is a whole new experience. This system breathes life into my records like never before, and it has made listening to vinyl so much more enjoyable. I'm not attempting to chase the sound with records anymore. I'm fully able to appreciate the records I already have. In short, I'm not suffering from FOMO. I can just sit back and enjoy the music. So am I recommending you do what I did and sell off your entire system to buy all new components? No, not by a long shot. Only you can decide if that's a good decision for you. And you might already have the system of your dreams right now. Everything is sounding fantastic and you do not need to change a thing. Or maybe you're just one change away. And that could be the big takeaway here. Is there something about your system that just feels stale? Is there something that you're not completely happy with? And maybe it's just not making the whole listening experience as enjoyable as it could be. Or maybe you just keep throwing more and more records at it, searching for that perfect sound like I was. It's entirely possible that that perfect sound will just never come because the problem isn't records. The problem might be your system just needs a little tweak. Anyway, maybe my story will help you to take a second look at why you're not as enthused about listening to your records lately. And I'm not trying to imply that throwing money at it is the only way to solve the problem. But maybe an evaluation of what's going on for you can bring you back to a place where you can enjoy listening to records again. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I hope you will consider liking and subscribing to the Spinz Vinyl channel. Don't forget to check out the Spinz Vinyl podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.